Doris Meets the Prince is the 23rd episode of the second season of the Doris Day show, and I really enjoyed this. It's also very unpredictable. I had no idea where it was going, and it definitely went in a direction I hadn't predicted. Doris is interviewing the Prince of Sidonia for Today's World, and it's decided that the prince should get to know the American people by spending time with some ordinary, everyday people, and he kind of invites himself to go on a date with Doris to do this. And Doris decides that restaurants would be much too busy, much too noisy for him. So she invites him to her home. The boys meet him, Buck meets him. It's really lovely. But then the prince starts to come on really strongly, and it seems like he has very strong feelings for her. And he's also looking for somebody to marry before he becomes king. And it seems like Doris might fit that bill. I won't say any more than that at the moment about the specifics of the narrative, but I had a lot of fun with this. In particular, Billy and Toby interacting with the prince. I just loved the way they responded to him and how enthusiastic they were and also kind of starstruck, and it was just absolutely adorable. The prince was also really likable, and one thing that really stood out to me is that he was very aware of the people around him. For example, he remembered Billy and Toby's names when he said goodnight to them, which I think was really telling about how the fact that he's not your stereotypical representation of royalty that we often see in films where the little people don't matter. He seemed to really care, and I really liked it, and I warmed to him really quickly. And of course, with him having eyes for Doris, I was keen to see what would happen with that. I think Myrna reacted the way I expected Myrna would, which was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. Definitely a really fun, entertaining episode. The Prince Carlos is played by Cesare Danova, and he's brilliant. As I said, a really likable character, and it's a really great episode. I didn't expect it to go the way it did. I will say I feel like it ended, or the solution to the problem I felt was kind of abrupt. Not quite a cop-out, but it did feel like a very dramatic way of resolving things. But nevertheless, it was unexpected. I won't go into more detail than that. But when things are unpredictable and still satisfying, that to me is a well-written narrative. And my favourite moment in the whole thing, well, maybe that's an exaggeration, but one moment I truly loved, and I guess this is a teeny tiny spoiler for something that happens at the very end. I have nothing else to say apart from this, so I guess a tiny spoiler from now. One of my favourite moments is when, well, the Prime Minister was playing the accordion, and he was playing Que Sera Sera, and it was stunning, and it was just so beautiful, and I only wish he'd played it for longer because it was really lovely to listen to. Needless to say, Doris Meets the Prince is a very likable episode. I wasn't sure if I'd like the prince once I kind of realised what was going to happen. He might have came across as sleazy and self-centred, but it was the exact opposite. And I really enjoyed Prince Carlos as a character, loved the narrative, very well written, and of course, always loved Doris. Definitely a really good episode and one that I really thoroughly enjoyed.